Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the memory hole. I want to briefly talk to you about something that sounds fairly small at first, but is actually extremely important. And the reason it's important is because this is one of the things I hear over and over and over from debunkers and skeptics across the board, whether they are debunkers and skeptics with ill intent that really don't want a genuine, uh, polite discourse between each other, or the open-minded ones, the ones that just haven't really paid any attention to any of this, but they're open-minded about it. They just can't believe X, Y, and Z because of the phrase that I'm about to tell you. And what that phrase that they bring up all the time is that there's no way that whatever it is possible. There's no way what you're saying about 9/11 is possible. It would just require too many people, and one of them is bound to talk. It's impossible to keep that many people quiet about something like this, even considering deathbed confessions, where even if someone swore themselves to secrecy for life and did it, they would still perhaps decide to film a deathbed confession video. We've had many of them of varying authenticity. Now, that is in some way a sort of logical, I don't know if I should use that term, but it sounds logical, and it's not, I guess it's not unreasonable, right? Thought to have. In fact, it might be one of the first ones that I would have right back in the day, and probably, in fact, actually, yeah, actually have had, right? There's a function, an operation, a way of organizing people and information that this video is going to focus on that's responsible for keeping it all quiet. In other words, it explains why something so massive, such as a 9/11 being an inside job, just as a hypothetical example, it explains how something that massive on that global scale from 9/11 to COVID can be handled in the way I'm describing, massive but entirely quiet and silent. Why don't people speak? It's all because of compartmentalization, information security. The phrase, the term itself couldn't sound any more mundane. Compartmentalization, you've probably heard that word in a variety of different contexts, right? For instance, there's a compartmentalization in the field of psychology, where it's a term to describe somebody that separates out certain types of emotions from other types of emotions in some type of exhibiting some type of avoidance behavior, right? That's compartmentalizing your thoughts, segmenting out different types of thoughts into different segments. So you can compartmentalize just about anything with a definition as basic as that, but you can also compartmentalize information. And this development, this revolution in information security is single-handedly one of the primary drivers, the primary incidents, the moments that defined the future we're living in now when it comes to the progress being made by these globalist reptiles, right? They're not actually reptiles, I just call them reptiles. The agenda, the transhumanists, the technocrats, right? The slow march towards the final revolution, right? The people driving it forward. This moment, the advent of this type of information security, compartmentalization, is what set us on that track and allowed it to happen, because it eliminated for the first time any type of governmental congressional oversight. In other words, the CIA, the Pentagon, all sorts of different branches of the intelligentsia, right? The intelligence world, all these different agencies can operate entirely in secret. No longer do they have to get government budgets or be approved by the government, or have their program slashed because Congress doesn't like it or votes that it's inhumane. No, now is the dawn of a new age, the special access program age. And that's the age that changes it all, because it allows the very thing that people think is impossible. There's just too many people involved. How can they ever keep such a thing quiet? Therefore, your conspiracy is debunked. You know, well, it's this, what I'm about to show you. So guys, don't go anywhere. rockfin.com/memoryhold, bitshoot.com/memoryhold. I appreciate you coming out here tonight. I really want this video to be something basic that you can, and brief, that you can show to your friends, family, and just general critics that actually would watch this video and have an open mind. We're going to cover the basics, the 101. Okay, I want to get a few of these videos out here. I'll also cover other similar topics that are quote unquote basic, but would have been perfect for someone like me when I was just getting started all those years ago. All right, so without anything else. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Suckers don't like me, but I could care less though. But I could care less though.
Fortunately, at the site of the landing, in the southwestern part of the Sea of Tranquility, there was a considerable variety of lunar material, much of it debris from nearby impact craters. At first, in case of a contingency, samples were chosen and collected rather rapidly. Later, as operations continued to proceed smoothly, samples were chosen and collected more deliberately.
I wouldn't lie to you folks. I wouldn't lie to any of you. Not a single data point of you. Not a single one of you. I am indeed at all times, perpetually without stopping or ceasing or taking a break or halting or giving up or quitting or any other synonym for stop. I'll never stop being personally invested in your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, which is why you're here. Get this article and kill the music. Alright. Once again, guys, be sure to like this video, get this out to your buddies and friends. We're covering today the advent of the special access program, the programs that allow all sorts of sick things to happen. We're talking about the types of programs that have resulted in horrific human experimentation, illegal human experimentation, things like nuclear radiation testing on human beings, illegally acquiring stillbirth, fetuses to test radiation on. That's a real thing they did in the 1950s. The CIA's MK Ultra and their mind control experiments, particularly things like de-patterning, where they'd end up accidentally well, that's not even accidentally. The goal was to scramble people's brains so they can wipe the slate clean, so to speak, and install their own, right? The CIA-made personality so they can be a super spy. This is real, right? Part of the artichoke sub-projects of MK Ultra, right? And there's worse. There's even mind-controlled Manchurian candidate programs, essentially under, I believe it was Artichoke, regardless, the MK Ultra. There's a number of things that you can point to that have been so horrific as a result of this advent of information security. Compartmentalization, Iran-Contra being another one, Iran-Contra being CIA drug trafficking, and having a large role possibly to play in the crack cocaine epidemic, right? The explosion of the crack cocaine epidemic throughout the 80s and the 90s. And a little bit earlier too, but you get the idea. All of this is not possible if it weren't for compartmentalization. But where did it come from? And it might sound lame to you guys, like, oh, who cares, but it's It's not lame at all, because what you have to understand is this is one of the things you're going to hear when you get so-called debunked, right? When people think they actually got you on that, because it does sound so reasonable, most people don't think to even question it as being problematic. But the fact remains is, if you get the data, and this channel is dedicated to showing you the data, if you stick to this, they're going to have a real hard time coming back against it. So where did it come from, guys? It came from something called, might sound familiar, the Manhattan Project. Now, if it's, if you if that's not familiar to you, that's okay. Nothing to be ashamed of. Manhattan Project, the secret, top secret, ultra secret nuclear bomb program that developed the famous nuclear bombs for, that ended up detonating World War II. Those bombs, you've probably know what I'm talking about now, if you didn't before. So I've got an article here, and they get straight to the point of talking about the key components to how this thing was kept secret. It was a massive program, right? The world depended on it. That's what they thought at the time. It goes as follows. A key component of keeping the Manhattan Project secret was making sure project sites were secret and secure, of course, obviously. One obvious reason the Manhattan Engineers District selected Los Alamos and Hanford and these other sites was their geographic isolation. So that's basic enough, but let's get a little bit more specific. They talk about each worker at the Manhattan Project undergoing a rigorous background check conducted by the FBI to ensure, there's no criminal history, suspicious connections with, Nazi sympathizers right at the time, or enemy nations. And by the way, I want you to listen to this and view it through the lens of a debunker saying, something like that 9/11 conspiracy can't be possible because it's just too big to keep secret, right? Which you will hear eventually. Keep that in mind as I read this, right? Because you're going to start to laugh out loud and realize, holy shit, yeah, it's as simple as that to realize how stupid of an argument that really is, even though it's so funny that they think they're so reasonable because of it. So anyway, yeah, rigorous background checks. It could often take several weeks for prospective employees to get cleared. Okay, that's kind of the boring stuff. Every employee that worked at one of the Manhattan Project sites had a security badge that displayed their picture, their job position, and their level of clearance. An employee's job usually determined their level of clearance. Okay, so this goes on, but let me cut to the straight chase and sort of identify what the idea of compartmentalization is, more specifically than what I have. What you have is segmenting information in such a way that it's a need to know basis. That is to say that it's not like, because it's the CIA doing X, Y, and Z, building a secret bomb like we're talking about, or a secret missile program. Just because the CIA is doing it doesn't mean that like everyone at the CIA knows, right? It's only a very specific sect of individuals that are hand-picked and chosen specifically by the superiors at the Central Intelligence Agency that greenlight the program. So a program is formed, the minimal amount of people required to start and run the program are enlisted, and let's pretend you're building a ballistic missile, right? You need scientists for that, probably a decent amount of scientists and engineers and these and this and this to do the nuts and bolts physical assembly work of the missile and the propulsion work of the missile, right? Well, how do you keep that secret? That's a lot of hands on deck that you're going to need. Well, it's simple. What they do, and this is the part where you have to tune in if you are watching this because, you really have never heard of this or haven't thought about it, or are one of those critics or debunkers. You have the scientists work on individual aspects, individual parts of the hypothetical ballistic missile, right? So they'll be working with a small piece, but it's a piece so small that it's not enough to give context as to what he's actually working on. In other words, these engineers and the other hands-on types constructing one of these hypothetical missiles, they're not even told what they're working on. They're just told what to do. You got to put the screws in here, and then you have to do the this, and then you have to do the that, and then you do the same thing to the next piece. You don't know that what you're doing is applying thermal skin so a exotic new American jet fighter can remain invisible on radar. You have no idea. You're simply told to hold a piece of material and do X, Y, and Z task to it, right? That's how it's built. So there's nothing to confess to. There's nothing to have to keep secret if you don't even know what's happening at all. Do you get what I'm saying? That's the main argument against the people, debunking things in that way. Oh, 9/11 was just too big, dude. There's no way these people could do such a thing. I mean, number one, such an easy thing to go to if you fucking don't know what they are capable of. They're probably capable of far more than we can ever even fucking imagine. And trust me, 9/11 is actually baffling, and other things like it. COVID falls in the same category, but we know it's the same deal. It's the same deal, right? All organized and engineered. And it's because you don't need them all to keep secret to do it. You can compartmentalize it out, just like they did with the Manhattan Project. So, what's the big crux of this? And we'll finish this up. Just a quick little 101 for the uninitiated. Um, General Groves was the architect of an intelligence revolution that took security measures to unprecedented heights. Congressional leaders agreed to secret budget processes with no legislative oversight. Groves created separate organizations to carry out his intelligence, counterintelligence, and surveillance programs, both domestically and overseas. These operated outside of regular military channels. They kept separate records and reported directly to him, aka the advent of a congressional, like a government approved and stamped 100% secret operation that has gone rogue, essentially, has broken away from the military, broken away from the intelligence agency, and turned into its own thing with its own agenda. Run by whom, would you think? The big guys up top who likely had a hand in making compartmentalization in this way a thing. This is what allows the CIA to be such a rogue state, and it's not me making this up. You can look at the quotes that JFK had about the CIA. He did not like the CIA very much. There's been multiple presidents that are on the record as stating that they really are concerned about the reach that the CIA has. Shit, the president that signed off on and ended up creating the CIA, right? Ended up not much longer later saying he kind of regrets it. He didn't know it would turn into what it turned into. It's its own rogue state pushing a ultimate technologically driven revolution to digitally enslave us all, to blend the physical and the digital together. That's at least what I believe based on what they tell us in their books is what the future is like. But back to the compartmentalization, there it is. Special access programs are now what they're called. A more recent example of one of these special access programs would be things like enhanced interrogation. You may recall that that was a big media story some years ago because it came out that we were essentially torturing prisoners that we deemed to be terrorists, whether it's Afghanistan, Iraq. They would be sent to these, what ended up being called black sites, CIA black sites and other agency black sites that are off the map, off the grid, not approved, not sanctioned by the government. And what was going on there was we were putting into practice, novel approaches to torture in order to obtain information. And when it came out, I can't remember off the top of my head, and it's late how it came out. I think documents leaked or something, evidence leaked, but this would have never been approved had it had to follow normal governmental guidelines, but it didn't, right? It didn't follow any approval process. They did it with no oversight because General Groves was the architect of an intelligence revolution that took security measures to unprecedented heights. And he therein created a breakaway intelligence agency, Rogue, right? So that's how all of this works, guys. See if they add any other goodies in here. I'll show you the article. It's called Security and Secrecy. Oh, is that not working? Oh, I see what I did. My bad, guys. Yeah, Security and Secrecy. Is there anything else? I mean, it's just basic. I wanted to keep it basic for you guys. Because a lot of people don't really think about something so simple that way. Here it is. Yeah, as the only person knowledgeable about the entire project. See, only one person knows of the entire scope of the plan at all times. The other people are just doing their part. They may know a little bit more than what their role demands of them, but they don't know the entire thing, like, say, the architect of the plan, like this guy, General Groves, was, right? AKA, this is how these things can be pulled off and possible. Doesn't require 1,000 people, it just requires 10 well-placed people. That's a good way to put it. Anyway, let's just finish up this article here. He controlled the project's pace, priorities, direction through his decisions. No one can travel from one site to another without the general's permission. Knowledge was compartmentalized, as I said. Workers were told only what they needed to know, and they were forbidden to discuss their jobs with anyone other than designated supervisors. Scientists used to the free exchange of ideas rebelled against the compartmentalization. Yeah, so they were just pissed that they couldn't just freely talk with each other and argue about this and that. At Los Alamos, Oppenheimer insisted that weekly scientific colloquia and other exchanges were essential to solve difficult problems, aka get the group together, hash it out, and the strongest ideas win, come to the top, and that's what you guys go with. But that's not the case, I guess. They said, but this openness among the top echelon of scientists at Los Alamos was an exception and was contained inside the fence. So even where attitudes like open scientific discourse occurred, Los Alamos and in this security state, this military industrial complex ended up fencing it off so it could not spread. That's how tightly the information was kept. And all of this ended up in not only the atomic bombing of 2 cities, hundreds of thousands of deaths, men, women, children, but also the creation of a monster, or the creation of at least one component of the monster. There could be no monster, though, so it would be a necessary component, without unmitigated ability and access to be able to conduct these horrific human experimentation programs, like we saw, Manhattan Project level programs, Iran-Contra drug trafficking programs, to fund secret wars. I mean, that's what this has gotten into. The intelligence agencies fighting literal secret wars that, the government knows about, but doesn't know about the CIA being behind it. The Contras, for instance, all the money going to it, these are proxy armies. You're watching puppets battling quite literally to the death on live television. That's what these little scuffles are and were in South America, right, during the Iran-Contra scale. So to imagine that the CIA might have been at least somewhat responsible because they were using drug money to fund fighters in those battles, as the world watched on thinking it was a legitimate war, a legitimate serious combat situation, which it was. It was combat, bullets were flying, but it's the CIA fucking A. That's compartmentalization. That's what happens when you get rid of oversight in any respect. They go rogue, and before you know it, in only a few decades, they're quite literally raising their own armies and fighting their own wars in the shadows. Absolutely covert. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you follow me, my channel, rockfin.com/memoryhold. Shit would be dope if you can help your boy out. It's worth it, I promise. What else? Oh, if you wish to leave a tip of any sort, you can hit me up on Cash App, Memoryhold, Venmo, Memoryhold, and you know the rest. Primarily, share this video. Most importantly, have a good day. That's it. I'll see you here next time.
I love sound can't play them tune for real.
Compartmentalize this, you fucking lizard. Dude, fuck you. Compartmentalize this, my ass, lizard. This is the CIA. This is the government. Hold on. The CIA says, hey, government, do you guys mind if I can just create all these crazy fucking human experimentation programs in secret with no oversight? And the government was like, yeah, like too scared to say no. Like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. It's good. That's a totally good idea. Let's do that. Totally secret programs with no oversight where people can run rampant, murders can happen out in the open, be completely covered up. People die of suicide all the time, or people like Frank Olson get perpetually pushed out windows. For every Frank Olson, there's probably 10,000 souls lost to being pushed out of a hotel window. Out of a hotel room, bought and paid for by a CIA shell company. One Frank Olson, 10 other hotel CIA suicide stories. Real shame. That's compartmentalization. That's how you pull it off.